So it does. I love the show has a sense of humor to it. Obviously, knowing your writing, but it's not like it's supposed to be a satire.
No,
That was kind of the
yes.
right?
It is absolutely not a satire. It is. I think that there's a couple ways you can do horror comedy. There's the Young Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein school, which is, what it is. There's the Evil Dead. There's the Evil Dead, Dead Alive House school, and then there's the American Werewolf in London school, which is what I did. Which is the horror movie is a straight ahead horror movie, and then it's comedic because the people behave in a very normal way. They don't behave in a stylized horror movie way. They're very dug into the real world and their own problems. Stan, who's based on my father, is much more annoyed that he's being replaced by a woman than he is that he's being haunted by 172 demons. And that was the sort of the combination that I did. I wanted to write a horror show. I wanted to do something that I was passionate about and I love. Clearly, I love all of this stuff. I would be here today if I wasn't here for this. But I'm a comedy writer, so I couldn't write it straight. And so I just took the show that I would like to write, and then I put a character that didn't belong into the show, and I put it into the middle of the show and made people react to it.
Well, what was the sort of I know this the type of show you wanted to do, but what was the specific concept? Where did this
The specific concept of the show was, what if my dad was Buffy the Vampire Slayer? What if instead of a young, hot chick that was saddled with this responsibility, what if it was a grumpy, old, bigoted, racist, sexist, stuck in his rut Fox News viewer who didn't care? And it was like, there's a demon tearing up the town. The All-Star Game's on. And just didn't want to do it. And it was just literally that. It took a very simple premise, and then because it was then I had to make it into a real show. I had to create a backstory and really flesh it out. But that was the initial idea. I was just going to do it as a 5-minute video, digital video, just like my father fighting a monster and complaining to his friend about having to miss the All-Star Game. It started with that joke, and then it sort of extrapolated off from there.
Now, how did you end up deciding to go with the TV series as opposed to like trying to pitch it as a movie, and how did it get picked up by IFC?
That's a great question, because it was not intended. I was going to do it as like a little 5-minute digital series with myself and my friend John Ennis, who's on my podcast a lot. And I was quite literally having lunch with Pete Aronson, who's one of the heads of programming at IFC. Just a lunch. He's just a friend of mine. And just a personal lunch. And then he said, just casually, he's like, you should write a funny X-Files. And I said, I kind of just did. And I pitched it to him, and he went, well, can you change A to B and B to C and C to D and D to E? And if you can, bring it back to me. And I went, yeah, I can do that easily. And then I brought it back to him, and he's like, yeah, great, you should write that. We just bought it. Go write it. And it kind of fell out of me. It was one of those, it'll never happen again. It's been a very charmed, the network has been great. There's never been a note that I'm like, they're insane, what are they doing? Like, I got an amazing cast. I got, for better or worse, it's exactly what I wanted it to be.
Whenever I see John McGinley in a role, it always feels like it fits him like a glove. It's just because he's always going to play that kind of crotchety, tough, alpha male type.
Right.
So, since you're writing this Stan as your dad,
right?
How close is your dad and John McGinley? Not in person, but John McGinley.
No, well, it's two things.
The way he acts and the characters he plays.
John is not like my dad.
Right.
He is freakishly like my brother, and he looks like my brother. I mean, John and I got along like brothers from the get-go, because he basically is my brother Kevin. He looks exactly like him. He behaves exactly like him. They have the same weird foibles. It was spooky. I did write the show as my dad. Stan in the original script, much older, much less active. It was all on Janet Varney's character, Evie, and he was just sort of this grumbling sidekick. And then I needed a name to be in the show, and somebody said John McGinley. I said, yeah, that'd be great, but really do it. He read it, he wanted to do it, And then he made the character his own. He took it, made it a younger character, a much more dynamic character, but made it his own in a way that is better than what I wrote, because Stan does a lot more. Coming from The Simpsons, I was very used to the power of writing for animation, where you dictate the physicality of the character and the actor does the voice. This was really the first time where I had to give the character away. I wrote Janet's character for Janet. She's a friend. I've known her forever. So I started that on the 90-yard line. But with John, or on the 10-yard line, with John, I had to kind of give him the character and see what he would come up with. And what he came up with was better. It's physically it's sort of an homage to Quint. And what he does is it's all the same dialogue, but it's a different character than my father is. But it's better and it's different and it's new. It's like, I wrote it for Sean Connery, but I got Daniel Craig. They both work. Yeah.
So what's it? I noticed that there seem to be a lot of practical effects, which is something that is near and dear to me. Actually, one of my really good friends is one of the demons in it. No.
Oh, who?
Yeah, Mick.
Oh, yeah, Mick is it? Yeah, Mick's a really good friend.
Yeah, Mick. Yeah,
oh, that's so
Mick's
funny.
working on it.
Yeah.
And when I saw you guys were here, I was like, oh,
that's so sweet.
Mick's show.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, and so what's it like being able to actually do the practical effects and like work on something where you're actually getting to do that kind of?
It was great. I mean, I grew up reading Famous Monsters magazine. I love, Greg Nicotero, who's one of the exec producers of The Walking Dead. I played the Wolfman in his first short movie. I was in the middle of shooting a pilot for ABC, and Greg, who's a really good friend, was like, "Hey, I'm doing a short movie. Can you be in it?" I'm like, "Anything you need at any time." It's like, it's next week. I can't. I'm shooting my pilot. I want you to play the Wolfman. I'm there. And I literally made ABC move its pilot, to do it. I love that stuff. And the greatest thing, I couldn't put my finger on why practical was so important to me, but I mean, clearly you can just tell, John Carpenter's The Thing, An American Werewolf in London. Those movies are timeless because those things are real. The effects are real. I believe this was attributed to Roger Ebert. And he's comparing stop motion animation to CGI. And it's how I feel about practical effects against CGI effects. Stop motion animation looks fake, but it feels real. CGI looks real, but it feels fake. And that couldn't have put its finger on it. Like, there's just something about knowing that thing is there. That also for humor, you need. There has to be a level of reality, because with comedy and horror, you have two separate but equal suspensions of disbelief. They both have to support each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe just one more minute, and then we'll go on to the next thing.
It's so hard to get me to talk.
You're very shy.
Go ahead.
Mine was a simple question. How many episodes? Then you'll get that one.
8.
8. Okay, then you go.
8. And then, following up on that, how is this going to play out, and how would it play out if you get a second season, unfortunately?
Yeah, well, I'm already planning on the second season. I'm assuming it's going to go. And there's a Monster of the Week, Kolchak the Night Stalker aspect to this show. Amazing. One of my favorite shows. And then there's an there's an overreaching arc to the story. So it's in that regard, it's designed like the X-Files. I have in the first season there's 2 mythology episodes, 3 mythology episodes, and 5 standalones. Much like the X-Files.
Right, and so the second season will kind of be along.
We're gonna pick that up as well. Yeah, I hope this is the second season because it ends on a cliffhanger.
Oh no!
That'd be perfect.
But you're one of those fans.
Well, I know what happens.
But what does IFC allow you to do that maybe another cable channel might not?
Well, do it to begin with. IFC. I don't think the show could live any other place. Because they really do let you follow your vision. I mean, it's an airy-fairy word, and I don't consider myself one. But they are auteur-driven. They're like, what do you want to do? Let us do it. And they would have 1 or 2 times they'd have a note, and they go, well, I see what you're doing. I like it this way. And they're like, if you believe that, go. As I said, it's been very charmed. A very charmed development. They made me do my homework. They made me when I first invested it, like I had to really write the history of this town, write the history of this character. I really had to hammer it into the bedrock, and it's a better show because of that. But who else could make a show like Documentary Now? It's a show that parodies documentary.
I mean, the horror that is the Grey Gardens episode.
Yeah, I know, but it's amazing that not everybody could do that, and I think Documentary Now, our show, Portlandia, The Simpsons, which is not an IFC, but all my favorite shows, The Simpsons, Twilight Zone, which is always my favorite show. They're shows that don't assume that you're a moron. They assume that you're smart, and they depend on you being smart, and it's a show for you. Joel Hodgson used to say this about certain lines on Mystery Science Theater, because he would often reference my act, and with my permission, but he would always say, not everybody will get it, but the right people will get it, and that's sort of like